Welcome to This Must Be the Place. I'm your host, Allo. Each week, I'll uncover what's happening in Sonoma County, diving into the hidden gems and quirky corners. I'll be interviewing some of our local legends, as well as people you didn't know you need to know, all through the eyes of a craft beer enthusiast living in wine country. Join me as we explore one sip, one story, and one adventure at a time, and together we'll find out why this must be the place. You know Burning Man for the spectacular art and surreal desert landscape. But what happens when the principles of that temporary city begin to take root in the permanent world? My guest today is Jennifer Reiser, a veteran burner, longtime Burning Man board member, and author of Burning Man Art on Fire. She's here to shed light on the festival's 2025 Tomorrow Today theme, which invites us to prototype a better future, to delve into the art that shapes the event, and to discuss how the dusty ethos of Black Rock City is finding a surprising home in Sonoma County. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on today's podcast with me.
Absolutely. Nice to decompress with you.
I'm sure you're going through a whirlwind of emotions and finding out how it feels to be home. And I just wanted to kind of start this off by, saying you have just returned from 17 days at Burning Man. I'd love you to give us a recap of the event and your experience on the playa and anything else you just want to say to introduce yourself.
Well, it was a really powerful year, I would say, on the playa. We did not have any rain over the summer in the Black Rock Desert, which usually tamps down the dust. So when I arrived around the 16th of August, it was what they called light and fluffy. There was about 6 inches of very powdery dust waiting for us, which made everything hard to navigate. But little did we know that rain and mud were coming along with 50-mile-an-hour winds around the time that most burners started arriving, which meant we had to close the gate and meant that a number of people who had just put up their structures came back to find them completely shredded by the wind. We had 3 days on and off of tough weather. A lot of camps rebuilt 3 times, which was pretty incredible. And then the sun came out and stayed out, got up to about 98 degrees, and we had 4 gorgeous days of the Burning Man we know and love. So it was a compressed burn in many ways. It was a real test for a lot of people, but it was also a beautiful testament to burner spirit because everybody pitched in, people didn't complain, they got to work, they helped each other, and ultimately they had a really beautiful and resilient time.
It sounds like that kind of encompasses the whole essence of Burning Man from what I've heard from other people. I've never been, but I've heard from fellow friends and colleagues who have gone that it really is a range of everything from weather to people's spirits to everything kind of just coming together, and you have to make of it what it is because you can't do much else about it.
It's kind of a metaphor for life. I mean, Larry Harvey, the man who founded Burning Man 40 years ago on Baker Beach in San Francisco, truly believed that the hardship was a way to forge a sense of community. And so being in a place that is literally trying to kill you with sun and wind and arid conditions means you have to really rely on each other and trust one another. And that forges incredible bonds that people come back for year after year.
Why don't you tell us a little bit how you got involved with Burning Man, what your work with the organization entails?
So 19 years ago, my best friend from high school and college said, okay, it's your turn. You got to go to Burning Man. Here's a ticket. Bring costumes. I brought nothing aside from costumes, which were all wrong. I brought no water, no food, no tent. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And people rallied around me and kind of clucked, but ended up giving me everything I needed and sharing the Burning Man ethos, which is what got me hooked. And now when I go, I always bring double or triple of all the essentials so that I can help some other hapless person just the way I had been helped. Since then, I've gotten very involved in the organization. When I first went, I had just sold my business in senior care, and I was really without portfolio in many ways. I was looking to do something new. And because my business had been in operations, I started suggesting to people organizing the event that there might be process improvements. Hey, you could make these lines shorter, or hey, you might want to think about approaching it this way. And they said, nope, it's a do-ocracy. You see it, you want to do it, you fix it. And so I started doing that. And since then, I have been the treasurer of the board of directors and the organization for 14 years
Wow.
and been very involved as a Black Rock Ranger. I volunteer at the gate. I do art tours during the week, and I try and make myself useful because it's a city where civic involvement and participation are necessary. It's run largely by volunteers, and we all have to jump in and do what we love doing to make it work. As an art aficionado, I ended up writing the book Burning Man Art on Fire because I felt like Burning Man art was not getting the respect it deserved in the contemporary art world. And for purposes of this conversation, I am very much speaking as the author of the book and not as a representative of the Burning Man organization. We have a really great press team, and they do all the speaking. I do not.
Well, you're doing a great job speaking here with me today so far, and we'll dig into some of the art aspects very shortly. But it sounds like you just have your hands in a lot of different Burning Man pots, as well as being an accomplished author. Sounds like you're a busy woman.
You know, Burning Man will consume as much of your life as you let it, and many, many people can tell you that. And it just happens to be such a remarkable combination of generosity, community, creativity, expression, and organization that it really it's something that will endlessly demand of me, and I like being challenged. So it's easy to get involved and to get immersed.
This year, what art installations really captured your attention as we transition to talking a little bit more about the art scene of Burning Man?
Well, let me say something first about the art scene at Burning Man. I think Burning Man art is a movement. I think it's the impressionism of our day. It's a remarkable combination of factors that basically happen when a group of artists share a manifesto, a group of ideas, they learn from each other, they riff off each other, they make art in a particular time and place that shares certain characteristics. And Burning Man art is incredible in that way because there's 400 pieces of art that are not curated, that are participatory. They are not for sale on the playa, and they're largely built and paid for by volunteers. So an artist or group of artists have a vision. They go to enormous trouble for 6 months to a year to bring this vision to life. They put it out there for a week of display and participation and being climbed on and activated in some way. And then it goes away. It's the largest art gallery in the world for 1 week a year, and yet it is not curated.
Hmm.
And why that's important is that every piece of art you see is intentional and has a message from the artist. And nobody has filtered it to tell you this is fine art, this is craft. Some of it looks super janky, some of it looks flawless. And that's really not the point. The point is what the artist is trying to say, not what the art represents necessarily. The art can be very delicate or fragile or blown apart by the wind, but the artist brought it there because they had a message for you. And it's up to you to figure that out. It's not up to the curator to tell you what the message is. So this year there was some really powerful themes that come across. And because there's no curation, what's interesting is that you'll have 400 pieces of art and certain themes emerge that are kind of in the zeitgeist that the artists are feeling and expressing. And every year they're different. Like you'll come on the playa and there'll be multiples of a certain idea expressed in their own way. But this year there were definitely four that really stood out for me. There were birds, which I take to mean a lot of people thinking about flight, thinking heavenward, trying to run away from our reality, trying to elevate our thoughts. The Native Americans felt that birds and feathers were the symbol that connected earth and heaven. And I think we're all trying to connect with some sort of higher being or power or influence right now because earth is so heavy and not heaven-like. The second thing was monsters, which is kind of the flip side of the birds. There were some cute monsters. There were some very scary monsters. I think people are expressing that the darkness that we're seeing in our government, in our environment, in our interactions with one another, in our media. And so that was fascinating to see all the different forms of scary things. There was even this one fabulous sculpture called 40 Winks that was a giant sized bed with monsters under the bed. And the scale was such that you felt like a 3-year old when you were climbing up into the bed. So that really kind of put it all in perspective.
And it's immersive.
The next thing, and very immersive. It was
I
gorgeous
like
too. It was
that.
beautifully done. And then there were lots of stone circles. Last year there were lots of tree circles, growth, kind of native. This year there were a couple of Stonehenges. There was one spectacular one that was partly clad in stainless steel, and it felt like we were going back to primal earth and trying to kind of sort out the meaning of the universe, the meaning of the heavens. There were 3 or 4 of these really, really big, massive ways of looking at the world from an early human point of view. And then there was a lot of work that really celebrated the feminine, which was really exciting. There was a lot of divine feminine. There were female figures. There were yonis. There were things that represented women in a way that showed their strength. There's always some beautiful sculptures depicting women, but this year it was about women's power. And I, of course, really gravitated to that.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of powerful stuff out there between the immersion, the calls to action, and just people wanting to express themselves. And that's really what art is all about, is the expression of the individual that kind of can come together as a collective. And I know there's a lot of an artist community in Sonoma County. So kind of bringing the focus into Sonoma County, what would you say the burgeoning relationship between the Burning Man art and the artist and Sonoma County is or could be? It does seem like Petaluma has become this epicenter for installations and burner culture.
There is a lot of burner spirit in the North Bay. There's a very active group called the North Bay Burners who have a Facebook group and meet once a month on the first Wednesday to kind of share ideas and collaborate. And then there's a lot of artists who basically set up shop here in Sonoma County because it's kind of the perfect conditions. There's large enough space that's affordable for people to have workshops or warehouses. There's a big volunteer community, which is essential because this large scale art cannot be built by an individual without enormous hardship. So, tens or 20s or even hundreds of people will come together to work on a piece of Burning Man art, not for pay, but because it's important and because of a sense of community. And once you work on one art project, then you get kind of hooked and you get a bunch of friends in that way. And so then you want to volunteer on the next project. And one of the things that's so beautiful is that a lot of Burning Man artists learn from each other, borrow tools from each other, collaborate. And like one year, one will do a monumental project, and then the next year, someone else will. And everybody kind of pitches in and helps. And the pool of volunteers is such that everybody shares ideas and resources and tools and kind of builds a community long before and long after the actual 1 week event that feels like Burning Man year round. I also think the environment here is so beautiful, and the natural sense of what's going on in Sonoma County is very inviting. So people want to live here and work here and play here.
Yeah, I mean, you really did touch on it with the whole community aspect, community of artists, community of these people coming down to the playa year after year and building those relationships and kind of building art within themselves. And you did just touch a little bit about, what is it that makes Sonoma County such a good fit for the Burning Man artists? Who are some of these Sonoma County burner artists we should know, and anything about them you want to share with us?
There are many, even more than I know. I'm a recent transplant to Sonoma County, so I'm still learning about who's here. I mean, some sort of marquee figures are Brian Tedrick, who does these enormous steel sculptures, often of animals. He's based in Glen Ellen, and he survived the fires where his studio was actually burned down and has rebuilt. Michael Garlington does a lot of photo related pieces, ceramic sculpture. He's built 3 monumental towering buildings at Burning Man, and he's in Petaluma. Kevin Clark is also in Petaluma. You can drive on East Washington Street and see some of his gorgeous installations that he has stored in the front yard of his studio. And then there's a number of people who've moved up here. Marco Cochran does big sculptures of women, and now he's doing one of a man, monumental, 6 feet tall. There's other folks who built their sculptures. I know of a couple who just moved up here. They built one of the best pieces at Burning Man in 23, a gorgeous library, and they decided this is where they want to retire. So I think more and more people are coming here thinking about what are the components that make a community great, and volunteering and having creative people around you is definitely one of them.
Absolutely. Now, if we were going to go make a day of exploring burner art, can you give us a loose itinerary of what we should be seeing and where?
Well, the best place to start in terms of concentration is in Santa Rosa at Paradise Ridge Winery.
Okay.
They have done a beautiful job of collecting Burning Man art, both in their permanent and in their temporary collection. It's really a joy. It's open at 8 a.m. They do not charge admission. It's a very generous, burner spirited opportunity to walk around and see a beautiful place and see about 8 pieces of Burning Man art currently, and they're always coming and going. There are more to come, more are leaving. Really special. If you live in the town of Sonoma, the Sonoma Garden Center has a spectacular Brian Tedrick set of wings that you actually can stand inside, and the wings are massive, about a 40-foot span. If you're in Sebastopol, I was so excited to see a piece by Mark Rivera, who's from Puerto Rico, that was at Burning Man last year, that's now on the little town green right across from Screaming Mimi's. It's called The Habitat, and it's a gorgeous beating heart that has a whole favela in it. Really special.
As a Sebastopol resident, I know the one you're talking about. I've walked by it and admired it many a time.
So he's really important in locally. He's going to put a piece, I think, in the Sonoma Art Center. I got to finally meet him on Playa this year, and he actually designed the man base as the World's Fair of Ideas based on the Eiffel Tower. And he also did a really powerful piece that was a parent and child in spacesuits that had been deported by ice to another planet.
Oh, wow.
Really strong political message. So he's going to come and visit in October. I hope we get lots more of his pieces because he's super talented and his work has real meaning.
Will he be popping up anywhere? Is there a place for people who are going to go talk to him or?
He said he was coming to do some art stuff. So in October. So I have to follow up on that.
Fair enough.
Not sure, but he is an artist to watch. Absolutely. One more piece. David Best did a river arch in Petaluma, and of course, David Best is one of our great our great mentors of art. He's the one who developed the temple and had built 17 temples at Burning Man. He's just an extraordinary visionary. His work is collected all over the world, and he's our hometown hero. So whenever you get a chance to see a piece of David Best art, you definitely grab it. There's a David Best piece at Paradise Ridge as well. There's a metal temple that he did, so you can also have a peek there.
So Paradise Ridge really sounds like one of the places to go see a huge collection, but you've given us a really great scope of burner art from Sonoma all the way through Sebastopol and down to Petaluma. I think people out there can make a day of it if they're really interested in getting in the car and going for a drive and just kind of encapsulating that burner spirit at Sonoma County art scenes. So thanks so much for that, Jennifer. As we get ready to wrap up here, I just want to ask you, you did touch on a meetup, but are there any other burner events in Sonoma County the rest of the year? I have heard rumblings of the meetups. Is that the ones at Crooked Goat, or is this another one you were mentioning?
The meetups move around because it's North Bay, so we try and make it convenient for some of the people some of the time. I would say join the Facebook group. There's about 5,000 members. It's called North Bay Burners, and they're your best bet. Actually, Michael Garlington and Natalia Bertotti are having a little artist fair in Petaluma at Bertotti Landscape on the 21st of September, and that will have a bunch of burner art. You can see Michael Garlington's studio, which is fascinating, and Natalia will be selling some gorgeous apothecary items as well. And then, things pop up spontaneously. You can't go to any event in Sonoma County and not bump into some burners. That's what I'm learning. So, put on a little bit of plywear and have people come up to you and ask if you're a burner, and you will meet them.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of great stuff out there for Sonoma County burners and burners of interest, I suppose I would say. And I just thank you so much for shedding a little bit of information on the art scene as it relates to Burning Man and your experience on the playa. Are you planning to already go back next year, or is that in the works down the road?
We've already got our plans, we've already got our plans for next year. Since the first time I went, I have attended every Burning Man since then. So I don't plan to stop my streak now.
Well, thank you so much again, Jennifer, author extraordinaire and La Playa enthusiast and expert. It was fantastic having you on our show today, and I'll catch you again real soon.
Burn brightly.
Burn brightly, everybody. Cheers. New and unexpected art is blooming across Sonoma County. From roadside murals to whimsical sculptures, the region feels like a new canvas for public art. It's got us thinking, are we becoming the must-see place for art? And if we are, where must we see it? Joining us to bring the art scene into focus is Spring Maxfield, founder and executive director of the Santa Rosa Urban Arts Partnership. Welcome, Spring.
Hello.
Tell us about the burgeoning art scene in Santa Rosa. We now have a whole arts district in the South A Street neighborhood.
Yeah, and that arts district was designated, I think, back in like 2002, 2004, somewhere around there. And it had been kind of this neglected area of Santa Rosa. And of course, with neglected areas come low rents, and that's when artists move in. And now it's a pretty hard stronghold for art studios. There's a lot of other little areas in Santa Rosa that are just kind of these little islands of creativity. And what we've tried to do with our Open Studios tour is really kind of create a connection between all of these little art areas, create a roadmap, so to speak, so people can go and experience firsthand artist studios.
That sounds really fantastic. I mean, it's nice to be able to promote local art, especially when there's such a glut of it in one area, being able to tell people go here, then go here, check out all these different mediums. What brought your passion to arts to the forefront? Can you tell us a little bit about your work in growing the arts in Sonoma County?
When I moved to Sonoma County in 1990, I was just surrounded by the most incredible creative people and realizing it wasn't going to be my career to be a commercial artist or a working artist. And while I love making art, it's not, I don't love showing it or sharing it. But the people who are absolutely meant to be doing that should be doing that. And when I was younger, they were all delivering pizza and working and, as wait staff and whatnot. And my goal really was like, how do these people make a living doing what they're meant to be doing? And that was to be artists. And so I think I found a real passion in just kind of creating an avenue for an actual economy for artists.
Sure, and I can completely understand coming from somebody who has a background in the performing arts. I went into college as a classical voice major. I love to sing. I still have my instrument, so to speak, but I realized very quickly that I love to sing so much. I didn't want to turn it into a career. I love to share my talent with people in other ways, but the passion to turn it into something larger wasn't there, but I still incorporate it into other parts of my life. So I kind of hear you doing something similar with the visual arts.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's a lot easier to be a cheerleader for other people than get up in front of people myself and be vulnerable. So there was a little bit of a stage fright to being an artist myself, but it's very easy to absolutely love and support other artists.
Absolutely. What makes the Sonoma County art scene special?
I don't know that it's any more special than anywhere else. I think one of my favorite things to do is find the creative communities everywhere I go. And we definitely have so many. I mean, and I think partly it's just location. Where we live is beautiful. It inspires people to create work. And it's just, there's so many different people out there doing amazing things, whether it's music or, visual arts or dance or theater. And it's just really neat to see behind the curtain a little bit. And that's what we're hoping to do with the Sonoma County Open Studio or Santa Rosa Open Studios.
Sure. And while you may say it's not as special as any one other place, can you tell us maybe what makes the Santa Rosa, visual art scene unique? Is there a certain medium that seems to be sticking out or emerging?
When you look at like other open studio tour catalogs, what you're going to see is a lot of paintings of barns and grapevines and apple trees and pomegranates. So that would be like, well, I guess that's a Sonoma County genre, but that's not what we're going for. What we're going for is really to highlight the individual artists. I just think we just have this wonderful opportunity to see not necessarily what makes us unique as a region, but what makes each artist unique as a creative individual.
Sure. Now tell us a little bit about the upcoming Santa Rosa Open Studios events. They're coming up in September, happening the weekends of September 13th and September 20th.
Yes. So 2 weekends, and that really gives artists a chance to have real conversations with collectors and dilettantes, folks who just want to see behind the curtain, just want to see what it's like in an artist studio space. And it is a lead up to kind of so-called art season, which usually happens in the fall. And you'll see that we have another Sonoma County Art Trails happens in October. So this really just gives artists another opportunity to have direct interface with patrons. For folks who want to buy art, folks who want to beautify their homes, who want to know more about the creative community, this gives them a really rare opportunity to meet the actual artists in their creative spaces, which is something you don't get when you go buy a print from, a mall store or, a furniture place where you just buy a Gleeshy print off the wall. This gives you a chance to really kind of feel something for the artist and have a personal experience that you can bring home.
It sounds like a really great way, as you said, just to connect with different people and to hear their stories rather than grabbing something online in an Etsy shop or another way of purchasing. I'm sure this isn't the first Santa Rosa Open Studios that's happened. You've been doing a couple of these now. Would you say it's grown over the years?
We're still kind of getting our sea legs. We had a really phenomenal year last year with a lot of folks who'd never shown their work before or had been put off by the barrier of entry to some of the other open studio tours is pretty high, and you have to be a very dedicated artist and pretty mid-career artist to really commit to those financial costs. We were able to give an opportunity for folks who really just wanted to kind of get their toes wet and see if the waters felt good. And it was phenomenal. It was a huge success last year, and we are really hoping to piggyback on that success this year and continue to grow it every year.
Why don't you tell our listeners what's the best advice to navigate the event? If there's a lot of artists participating, is there a certain route they should take? Or if they're interested in certain mediums, are there pockets that they should focus on? Give us a little bit of a preview of the layout of Open Studios.
I think the best thing to do is to go on our website, which is sropenstudios.com, and click on the map. You can zoom in and see where the artist studios are. Now, a lot of those pinpoints on the map actually contain multiple studios. Like you'll look at the map and you'll see Fulton Crossing is way up off of Fulton Road and River Road. And it may seem like a long way to go because it's a few miles off the beaten path. But when you get there, you're going to find a bunch of artists. So you're going to actually be able to see 6 or 7 different artist studios in one place there. Same with Sofa District in downtown Santa Rosa. There's a few other little clusters, Cowell Studios over off of West College. So I think looking on the map, getting an idea of the layout, and you can click on each of those pinpoints and it will open up and show you what artists are there. And then you can also, on the main page, on the homepage of the website, you can scroll down and see a sampling of every artist's artwork. So you can kind of cross-reference your map to pieces of work you're really drawn to or styles you're really interested in, and then create an itinerary from there.
Sounds like a great way to attack it. You've heard it from Spring Maxfield, folks. Don't miss the nooks and crannies of the Open Studios. Make sure you're looking at every little place on that map to check out. And Spring, are there any newer emerging artists you're particularly excited about, or maybe on the flip side, that they're particularly excited about being able to showcase their work?
I'm really excited. We have a person named Bug Thompson who's showing for their second year, and last year was their first year showing their work anywhere, I think. And I just love their work. It's very youthful. It's very kind of dabbling in those areas where I think we all remember being teenagers, and, death is interesting, and kind of the gothic sides of nature. And it's really fun. We also have Alina Nubel, who is a great artist. And her work can be seen in the Sofa District. She's just really talented, skillful, technical artist, amazing work, a lot of nature themes. And then Zoe DiNardo is an artist who I'm not familiar with, but I'm really just loving her work. It kind of harkens back to Bill and Margaret Keane, big-eyed paintings of the 60s and 70s. But she also has a lot of really great skill. So those are some artists I'm hoping to check out myself this coming September.
And I'm sure those artists, as well as all the other ones attending, tend to promote themselves because they want their fan base and their following to know that they're there. Do these artists have social media profiles or places you can kind of get a preview of what they'll be showcasing at this open studios that they can go on Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, and check out?
Absolutely. So if you go on the homepage, sropenstudios.com, and you scroll down, you can click on every single one of those images, and it will bring up the artist, all of their social media, their address, best ways to contact them, their websites, if they have it. Then again, with the map, it will also bring up, if you click on any of those places on the map, it'll bring up their social media.
Well, to our listeners out there, this doesn't sound like a completely overwhelming event, but it sounds like there's a lot to crack the surface with. So as you're listening to this and you might be taking your morning coffee or maybe sitting back on your porch in the evening, go to that website, preview, make sure you make that list, make that itinerary for yourself to make the most out of Open Studios. Spring, why should folks come out and support this event? Obviously, I mean, supporting the arts is huge in communities like ours, but are there other reasons folks should come out and support Open Studios?
I think that art brings so much to people's lives, whether they realize it or not. And there's way too many blank walls out in the world, and it is up to people to fill those walls with things that have personal meaning. And this is a great opportunity to get out in your community, meet your artists, and ultimately support your artists, because they kind of are at the core of everything that happens around you.
And I'm absolutely guilty of that. I am not a wall hanger myself. I do love art. I love going to local markets and kind of, as you said, perusing the stalls, grabbing that business card and saying, I'd love to get in touch with you later. And my follow through is not great. So this might give me the kick in the butt needed to go out there, check out some local art, meet some artists, and maybe bring a piece back to hang on my own wall, which I'm guilty of not doing far enough.
I will help you hang the art if that's what it takes.
Hey, that's probably what I need.
It's a good idea to get the center of your art about 57, 58 inches off the ground. So that's the kind of general rule of thumb.
Pro tip, you heard it right here from the art director, exactly where to hang your art. So talking a little bit about the broader impact of Open Studios, what kind of impact do you hope it'll have on the Santa Rosa arts community and the broader community, like long-term going forward?
Ultimately, I think everybody who works in the arts wants to see the arts be a real economic generator for communities and for community municipalities to recognize that and to really see how the arts can benefit, and not just as like every brochure. I mean, now everything's online, but back in the day, every brochure, tourism catalog, tourism magazine would show people standing in art galleries to show like the public art. And yet there's always so much resistance to letting public art happen, to funding public art. There's so much resistance to mentioning whose work is on the wall in that photograph that the tourism company is using to promote that city. And we need to recognize, like, you're getting people coming to your city because they want to come to a cultured, wonderful place, and we're not supporting artists the way we should.
Absolutely.
And I think Sonoma County actually in the last 10 years has done an incredible job of taking that step to create an economic development area specifically for the arts. And it has absolutely had an incredible effect, like instantaneously. And it could, if we just keep pushing that, we're going to see everybody benefit.
And the more people that benefit, the better the program grows, the more happy the artists are, and the community will keep coming out. One more question for you, kind of about the setup of the event. This is located in Santa Rosa in densely kind of populated areas. Are there local businesses along the route that people can pop into for a refreshment?
Oh, goodness, yes. I think some of my favorite places that always have art hanging is Criminal Bakery in the West End neighborhood. Redbird in Sofa District, Spinster Sisters, I think is the best place to go after a long day of touring art studios. Cafe Frida is a great place to grab coffee in the morning before you head out. Yeah, there's so many wonderful places in Sonoma County. How to list them all. I don't even know.
There's just too many places to list
Santa
them all.
Rosa
But
is
you
full
gave
of
us a good
places.
couple there for our viewers who may or may not be familiar. And one question just off the cuff, because I'm curious. I have an art expert with me. I'm a big fan of street art. Is there a street art scene in Santa Rosa at all, or is it interspersed throughout the community, or not really?
Do you mean like graph writing, or do you mean more?
Murals, mural
Yeah,
art. I've always loved going when I travel. I try to seek out those districts that have mural art. Austin, Texas comes to mind, Atlanta, Georgia. But I'm curious if Santa Rosa has a mural art or street art type of scene at all.
Santa Rosa has been like embracing murals in a way that 20 years ago I would have only dreamed of. I had proposed so many murals and mural festivals, and they got completely shut down by the city, by neighborhood groups who just confused it with graffiti and gang writing. And there's a beauty in that too, to be honest, but we won't go there. There has been some really great murals in the last 7 years, 8 years. MJ Lindo and Joshua Lawyer have done some wonderful work that we've supported them with. And, Sonoma State University in 2020 invited me to curate a mural show online because everything was shut down because of COVID. So it was an opportunity to use their art gallery space and go virtual. And I put together a really fun tour of a dozen or so murals in Santa Rosa and a little bit around Santa Rosa. And you can find that tour on the Sonoma State Art Gallery website. It was called Spray It Like You Mean It. And then MJ and Josh put together this Roseland mural project a few years ago, and they did 10 murals in Roseland, and then the following year, 10 murals in Santa Rosa. And a lot of those you can see on Santa Rosa Avenue. Bud Snow did an incredible mural on the back of the Roxy movie theater on First Street.
That one I've seen.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really good stuff out there. And I don't remember all the artists' names that MJ and Josh commissioned with or worked with the city, but Sebastopol Road is chock full of them. Yeah, there's some great stuff out there.
Well, as somebody who just returned to Sonoma County after 7 years of being away, it sounds like I have some mural hunting to go out and do on one of these nice late summer days we have. Spring, as we prepare to wrap up here, I just want to get your pulse. We talked a little bit about art trails coming up in October, but aside from art trails, or if that's it and you want to give us a little bit of a preview, are there any other art events we should have on our calendars coming up this fall?
Big events, Railroad Square Music Festival is September 28th, and that's a really fun event downtown in Railroad Square area. I know the Arlene Francis Center has monthly things happening, and that's in the West End, just north of Railroad Square. Sonoma County Sketchbook Club invites everybody to join them every third Thursday at the AFC, and it is just kind of a pop-in, get your sketchbook out, and it is a wonderful mix of full-time artists and people who are doodlers and just trying it for the first time, but in company. It's really fun that way. Also at the Arlene Francis Center is a circus jam. It's every Wednesday night. So anybody who is practicing their circus skills, there's no lessons per se, but it's a great opportunity to go be among peers. And of course, you're going to pick up tips and tricks. Other events, I did mention Art Trails in October. We produce, our nonprofit Santa Rosa Urban Arts Partnership produces Winterblast, which is every winter, kind of kicks off the winter season. It's a celebration of the darkness. It is 2 illuminated, really fun parades that everybody is invited to participate in, as crazy and weird and wonderful as you can be. We do lantern workshops leading up to the parade. The whole parade is in the Sofa District, and it has become a sofa parade. This will be its 22nd annual year. People decorate sofas in the most creative, wonderful, wild ways and push them down the street with full teams and full costume. There's food trucks, there's vendors, there's art studios open, there's theater. It is absolutely magical and hilarious and irreverent and weird. And that happens this year on November 15th from 3 to 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, November 15th.
So Winterblast sounds like a blast. Lots of sofas rolling around. Irreverent and weird is kind of Sonoma County's calling card. So if you haven't put that on your radar already, everybody go ahead and check that out. Well, you certainly seem to have a good pulse on everything going on in the art scene in Santa Rosa. As you heard it from Spring Maxfield, everybody, from circus to sketch to art trails, there's a lot to get out there and do and see this fall in Sonoma County. Spring, has been fantastic talking with you, and I look forward to catching up with you maybe as we come back in the spring. The interviews are done, which means I think it's time to crack one open. Interviews make me thirsty, and I want you thirsting for knowledge about some great beer, both local and not so local. Each week, I'll introduce you to a beer I find discussion-worthy and explain the nuances of what makes it fantastic in my eyes and why you should give it a try. And just to keep it on point, I'll even try to make sure the beer reflects the vibe or theme of the episode. We've been talking about art all episode long, and so I wanted to bring a super fresh beer release to the table brewed by our friends at Russian River Brewing Company that, in my opinion, is truly a showcase of just how brewing is an art form in and of itself. They recently released a beer called Hop Growers Tribute Series. It's a collaboration with Mac Hops out of New Zealand, and it's a 6.5% hazy IPA with not a trifecta, but a quadfecta of hops. Yep, you heard me right, there's a new word for you this week. Mac Hops just celebrated 125 years in business, and it's a fifth-generation family hop farm from New Zealand that came up and brewed a beer here in Windsor with Russian River. It's loaded with 4 hops: Bracao, Riwaka, Nelson, and Nectaron. All of these hops do come from the Southern Hemisphere. As I pour it into my glass, this beer is super light-bodied. It has aromas of fresh stone fruit and pineapple wafting from above the foam. As I take a sip, I get light grassy notes, as well as some white wine grape notes that Nelson hops are known for. Hops are one of those ingredients that are akin to the garlic or spices in a recipe when you're cooking, and it takes the right artistic touch to bring a balance of bitterness and flavors to the forefront while brewing. Perhaps just like the right strokes of a paintbrush onto an artist's canvas. Head out to Russian River in downtown Santa Rosa or Windsor and snag this one for yourself while you can. Cheers, and I look forward to cracking one open with you next week. A huge thank you to Spring Maxfield and Jennifer Reiser for speaking with us on our podcast today. It was really great getting to know a lot more about the Sonoma County art scene that's happening around this fall. Thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in. This Must Be the Place is produced by our friends at Pod Locally, an audio platform helping local voices connect to their communities. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment on all your favorite podcast apps, and visit the show notes for more information, links, and resources. Look out for our next drop on Sunday. Until then, I'm your host, Allo saying have a great week.